Good morning, America. Remember that? Famous movie. There we go. Sorry, having technical difficulties this morning. Hey, this thing opens, that thing opens. I was already at 8:30, 8:45, and then this didn't work, and then the camera stopped working. I plug in there, and then oh boy, one thing after the next. I've got good equipment, but just things. Welcome to live TV or podcasting or whatever this is. It's a Simulcast on 3 social networks, as you may know: Facebook Live, YouTube Live, and Twitter Live. Twitter has become a little unreliable live because every once in a while it'll drop off after 20 or 30 minutes for an unknown reason, which, it's three social networks at the same time covering, high definition TV. We got, a digital source over here. We got a digital source over here. We got digital sources over here. We got digital. I've got a few things working all through this this MacBook solid state computer, and sometimes things happen. Anyway, it's been a very active news week. The most interesting thing is, I watched, Marilyn and I watched The Five. Now, sometimes we watch The Five at 6 or 7, and sometimes 5, but mostly at 6 or 7 because, she's picks up number 3 son, Brennan, from work, drops him off at home, and then comes home here. And that adds about another 40 minutes to her ride. So instead of getting home at 5:30, she gets home at 6:30. So, so anyway, when we watch The Five, which is broadcast from the other side of the Central Park, if you will, and looks straight all the way across, Midtown. And I say, what is that tall, skinny building? That is the skinniest building I've ever seen. When you look all the way across the skyline, you see this little tiny skinny building. Well, it's located at 111 West 57th Street, for all you folks that are familiar with Manhattan addresses. And remember the Steinway piano? The Steinway? Well, the Steinway residence in Manhattan is located at 111 West 57th Street. Well, in honor of the Steinway residence location, they built this tall, skinny, 1,423 feet tall It's the world's tallest skinny building. It's the skinniest tall building. However you want to say it. You see, there's, must have an interesting parking garage associated with that. But it's a tall, skinny building. And on two sides you have, sheet glass. And on two sides you've got, this other architectural stone and bronze and all that kind of stuff. That only the world's most fluent architects would remember. I read the article real quickly. I was just, that was one of the reasons why I'm a little bit late. Because I was trying to figure out, because that was a question that popped up several times. And I figured, you know what? I've got to get the answer to that question. Self-imposed question. What is that tall, skinny building? Well, now you know. It's the Steinway building. And named after the Steinway Piano Company. 111, there it is, in print, West 57th Street. There it is. No. Let's do this. Look up. Hialeah? No. There we go. 435 meter tall skyscraper in New York City. Yep. There it is. You can look it up. There we go. That's the sideways look at it. But if you look at that's the ground floor look at it. Got a big, oh gosh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-story entry feature. Yeah. It has it's just sandwiched right between other buildings. And that thing keeps going all the way up. I'm sure the residents on either side of that building were not happy while that was going up. Phew. Just construction. Someone drops a nail from 1,000 feet up. By the time it comes down, it's going 200 miles an hour. Hits you the wrong way in the head, and you got a hole in the head. Yeah. They put these, these sidewalk pedestrian coverways. So when you're walking along, anywhere near that construction site, someone drops a hammer, you don't get hammered. Phew. "111 West 57th Street. Yes, sir. That's quite an address. And it's built with the world's strongest concrete. Well, it better be. Concrete is normally mixed at a compression setting of either 3,000 psi, 3,000 pounds per square inch. They take a square inch circular, flat circular tube, cylinder, flat edge. And I push it down at 3,000 psi, and then the concrete breaks. And the other setting is a 5,000 psi setting. And the question is, did they actually create a higher strength? Maybe that's the next question for oh gosh. Let's try it. What the heck? Yep. What is PSI strength of P? Come on. Steinway. What is the concrete? CONCRE. Let's try that question. That's probably a better question. Oh my God. 14,000 psi. Whoa. There is the answer. What is the PSI strength? The engineering of the super tall, super slender 111 West 57th Street building. Whew. Utilizing a high-strength concrete of up to 14,000 psi is imperative in achieving the building such of unprecedented height. All right, there you got it. 14,000. The magic. Do you know how long it would take to look that up in the Encyclopedia Britannica or, in the library? Just, come on. What is the footprint? All right. 59 feet by 78 feet. Okay. That answers that question. How many floors? Yeah, let's do that. 84 floors. 84 floors. How much does the Steinway Tower sway? 3-foot sway. So in your high winds, this sucker will move 3 feet. So if you got a chandelier, it's gonna be swaying. Woo! Jeez. What is the skinniest skyscraper in New York? Well, the skinniest skyscraper in the world. All right, I was getting an interesting question here. Oh, there's the skinniest skyscraper. It's the Steinway. Yep. Okay. Yeah, you get all kinds of pictures. Looking down on it. It's interesting as you look sideways on it. If you're tuned into looking at what I'm looking at, let's do full screen on that. It kind of like candeliers. When you get up to floor 50 or so, it goes in, and it goes up 8 or 10 stories, and goes in, up 8 or 10. So, if the, let's corrodes off that. So the footprint, so when you get all the way down into the foundation, it's 59 feet by 78 feet. Let's get our trusty calculator out. 59 times 78, 4,620. So in theory, you could have, not counting the vertical penetrations, for the elevators and so forth, which that could be 600 feet. You could have a 4,000 square foot apartment and take up an entire floor. Jimmy lives on the 59th floor. Yep. So that's interesting. There you go. Bet you never even thought to ask that question, huh? You learn all kinds of interesting things here at FAU for you. The @sign FAU for you is the handle or the call sign or whatever we call it on social media. The @sign FAU for you. FAU, the number 4U. I grabbed that real early, and it aggravated some people that were associated with FAU or alumni of FAU because right when the internet started going, I was teaching at FAU since the year 2000, so and that was really early on in the internet world. It's hard to believe. Seems like for all these young kids, the internet, it's been going on forever. For as long as you lived. But there was a time before the iPhone, 1980, actually, or something like that. I have the brick up in my little closet here. Oops. Which I think I can get out without straining my broken Lego. There we go. There it is. I have to, producers, could you kindly turn on the other camera views? There it is. You see, there's the brick. The Motorola StarTAC 8500. There's the battery. That replacement battery cost me like $1,000 for a 7.5 volt nickel cadmium battery. We got the serial number on there and everything, and the model number. And this would run it for a couple hours. You didn't want to. This had a special. So you put it on here about a third of the way, halfway in, to slide that up, and then the contacts. These contacts hit these contacts. Yep. The phone bill, as I remember, would whoops, sorry. Was you paid a monthly fee. I'm going to say, $100 a month, $125 a month. It was some ridiculous number for the cellular telephone line. But remember, this is early on in the cellular, and in the Tampa market. We're living in Tampa at the time, and I was working for a real estate developer. Thank God. I'd have never gotten one of these in the bank. No way. But with the real estate, I got my business partner very interested in the cellular idea and being able to have a phone essentially in your briefcase. It's because this is a pretty big sucker to have in your pocket. Now, they're in the movies, you saw them slide it in the jacket pocket, if you're wearing a suit. But it's, it's a couple of pounds. I'm not weighed it out. We should put it on a scale just so we know. But it's it's not like, here's the iPhone and here's this thing. So it's a lot skinnier, obviously. If we can look at the skinny. So, anyway. I mean, the iPhone is a magical supercomputer in your pocket, and that you can put in your pocket. But, for 1985, 95, oh God, 95, 05, 15. Oh! You kidding me? It's over 30 years ago that I've had this thing. No wonder it's getting a little brown around the edges. Holy crap. 95, 05, 15, 25. It's 38. It's 39 years old. My phone is 39 years old. Jeez. Eesh. Holy mackerel. That's amazing. All the buttons work. I actually got the battery, or I have a charger. Would you believe? I disassembled a charger. I had a charger. And actually got this thing to turn on. Now, all the all the cellular signals that you get on the modern towers these days are digital channels. The iPhone, for example, is a transceiver, a transmitter, and a receiver. It sounds like it's, when you're talking, your thing is transmitting and it's receiving simultaneously. But they're two separate systems that are inside that little iPhone beast. And it's transmitting both ways at the same time, or what seems to be the same synchronous time. You can be talking to someone and they're talking to you while you're talking to them. So you're listening to them while you're talking to them. So this, you got this rapid fire conversation going on, and it's a continuous stream of transmission and receiving. But you have a transmitter and a receiver. And those two things, your receiving thing goes into the earpiece, and the transmitting things emanates from the microphone, and vice versa on the other side of the phone call. And of course, you could be on a conference call with another person. You could be on a Zoom call, and you got 10 other people, and all this transmitting and receiving is going on simultaneously, because you can't get people to shut up when the other person is talking. It is what it is, as they say. So the cell systems came into play I got this phone in 1984, 1985, somewhere around there. They've been out for a couple of years probably, maybe in New York City, with a trade show. But it's got a microwave antenna. Oh boy. I couldn't, this sucker cost me $3,500 40 years ago, 39 years ago. I have the box. It was like a $4,000 package. It had a thing, underneath the footwell. You could slide the phone in, and it connected into the car battery, and then the antenna connected to an exterior little wire thing that came out you know, in the trunk lid, you know. And a little skinny wire would come up through the trunk thingy, so you wouldn't have to drill a hole in the trunk. I remember that. So that way, when you're in the car, you could be using your phone, of course. Now, using the phone, I remember my partner and I each had one. We had a company, maybe 15 employees, maybe 20. You know, walk around the office and count noses. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, maybe 15 employees. Not a lot. We were a real estate developer, and we built shopping centers, like Publix shopping centers, like you see here in the Boca Raton market. We built store number 300. That was our favorite, our first, not only favorite, but our first Publix shopping center was the Publix company's largest Publix store of 55,000 square feet. 55,000 square feet. It had a drugstore. It had a flower store. It had a bagel store. No, it was known for having a pharmacy, of course, but it also had a flower store kind of a thing. It had all kinds of cut flowers and things. You know, they reduced the flower portion in future stores because they didn't sell a lot of flowers, or they didn't sell enough flowers to get anybody interested in operating the flower store. You know, so they, they got, a couple of things to stock flowers here and there in the store, but they don't have a whole store. But in the store that we built, they had a whole, couple hundred square feet associated to a unique flower store, with an indentation thing you could walk in, and a little bit, not walking big. Maybe it was 150 square feet associated to flowers. Well, they eventually got rid of that 150 square feet and just put it on, in a traffic island in the middle of the vegetable department. Really, that's about the amount of space they sell flowers. A couple flowers is, maybe, they'll have some more flowers in there for Mother's Day coming up. Anyway, so we've identified the world's skinniest, tallest skyscraper. Not the tallest skyscraper, but the tallest skinny skyscraper. Everyone is saying it. You say it too fast, you run out of S's. Except for Stormy. Stormy Daniels. Oh, Lordy, what's going on here? We have to undo the shift key so I can look at it. There we go. Stormy Daniels gave her testimony which was ridiculous. The fact that she even had any testimony. This is supposed to be a case of Trump falsifying his business records. Yeah. So why did they have her there? She, as I recall, she received $130,000. At one point in time, I actually read the NDA, a non-disclosure agreement contract for Stormy Daniels, and she signed a disclosure, multi 4 or 5 pages, I think, and it basically said, "Hey, we had no romance. I barely know who this person is. No sex, no this, no that. Honest to God, swore on a stack of Bibles notarized, at least. I don't know about the stack of Bibles. Probably not when you're talking about a porn star, because there would have been lightning. Yeah. And she was paid $130,000 and swore that everything in this contract is true and correct to the best of her knowledge. Now she gets on the stand yesterday and says, I even like fell asleep. So I don't know what happened. Yeah. But why but she goes into this incredible detail. Oh, he had silk pajamas on and she went into the bathroom and noticed that there was, what kind of store-bought, men's aftershave, perfume, lotion, whatever. And she thought it was odd that he you kidding me? He has his own line of smell goods, whatever. Men's perfume. Anyway. And she goes into this sordid, tale, and then says, well, I actually fell asleep, so I don't know what happened. And the Q&A had nothing to do with what he's. As a matter of fact, we don't even know what the heck he's been charged. The indictment came down without them citing a particular law. Why? Because there is no such law. Now in federal regulations, they got all kinds of laws, regarding campaign contributions and what kind of, expenses are legitimate and otherwise with the campaign expenditures, campaign financing, so forth. But the New York state law doesn't have, they didn't have anything to call it. So the indictment came down without any laws particular. Oh boy, that's quite a, that's disgusting. So she gets on the stand all day and basically talks about all this salacious stuff, which is, you have two basic. I'm not a lawyer, okay? I'm just a regular schlemiel here in Boca Raton, Florida, downtown Boca Raton, in our downtown studio, 8 foot, my 50 square foot studio. You take a deep breath, it goes to 55 square feet. In our volumetric space here, with a staff of 3, me, myself, and I. Yours truly is I. And you have an important factors. There are several important factors, of evidentiary evidence. You have the probative value and the prejudicial value. A couple of P words. And there's a balance between the probative value and the prejudicial value of, this information coming in is so outrageous that it prejudices the jury or the judge and the jury, or the information is so valuable that The probative value far exceeds the prejudicial aspects of the testimony, type of testimony, the person delivering the testimony. Anyway, with the Stormy Daniels scenario, the prejudicial value against the president. She was obviously brought into this case to smear Trump so that the news cycles would cover all this salacious crap that this stripper, would have to say, and the probative value was zero because she had little or nothing to offer that, she had nothing to offer with regard to the case at hand. Nothing. She knows nothing about how the checks were processed, where the checks emanated from. The checks came from, Trump's attorney. And Trump, he signed the check to his attorney. He didn't sign any checks to what's-her-face. And, the attorney for him made the deal. Signed the deal, made the deal, had Stormy come in. Trump wasn't there. He didn't witness anything. He wanted anything to do. Look, this is a multi-billionaire guy. He was building huge skyscrapers in Manhattan, built, some important parts of the New York City skyline, including Trump Tower and other things that he's done in New York and Washington. Anyway, so he's totally grossed out. Trump, plods him to the courthouse, wastes his time listening to all this terrible stuff. Anyway, so now the plaintiffs want 2 more weeks. 2 more weeks? What the hell are they going to do in 2 more weeks? Well, they got a week for this and a week for that and a week to close and jeez. Crazy. But at least one thing happened. The federal judge, I guess Miami or the Southern District of Florida, whatever the Fed districts run, covering the Mar-a-Lago documents case, those trial dates have been not moved. They've been canceled because there's such a, there's such a mess on how to, and then they found out that, the plaintiffs, the U.S. attorneys have fooled around with the evidence. So now they're going to have to search all the records to figure out what evidence they fooled around with. They fessed up to certain documents, but now they got to examine everything. So the federal judge says, forget it. The trial dates have been postponed indefinitely. So now they'll have to figure out when that could possibly happen. It isn't going to happen, before the election, in my humble opinion. They're certainly not going to start a trial 90 days before the election. And there's only 180, there's only 90 days between now and 90 days before the election. This is only 6 months to go until November 5th. So the federal judge postpones the Trump's classified documents trial essentially indefinitely. And assuming the positive and Trump gets elected, which is, in my opinion, more likely than ever before, because Mr. Biden has a record to run on. And when he first got elected, he didn't have a record. He had a lot of, a wish and a promise. And a lot of American voters said, well, I might as well give him a shot because Trump is a little bit of a pain in the butt. But, he was, according to the media, of course, he is a pain in the butt. I've had all the I've had all the non-serious titles, and I've had some of the most serious titles in a corporate banking world, including president, of a bank holding company. I wasn't president of the bank. Phil Motter was president of the bank. My business partner in the banking business for 12 years was Phil Motter, a magnificent human being. I remember telling my wife that your dad and Phil Motter are the two nicest and most decent men that I've ever met. And I meant that. And I still do. They've both left us and live in heaven now, looking down on us. But I must say, Phil Motter and Mr. John J. Murray were the two nicest people that I've ever had the pleasure of knowing. And Phil Motter happened to be my business partner, and John J. Murray was my father-in-law, Marilyn's father, my marvelous Marilyn. Been together 44 years, Marilyn and I. And Phil Motter and I were known each other for probably 15 years, maybe 20 years. But the 12-year heart of that 20-year knowing of each other, he was the president of Southern Security Bank, and I was CEO of Southern Security Bank. And I was president of the holding company, and he was CEO of the holding company. We had like overlapping, swapping titles. We were both on the board of directors. He was the chairman of the board, and I was vice chairman of the board of both companies. He was chairman of the board of both companies. He knew a lot of the money people, and I knew other people, and got to know the money people, of course. And we were equal shareholders to the share. We weren't equal shareholders when we started, but right about the point when we acquired the bank, so the bank holding company essentially had an asset. But right before that time, he said, Jim, this is Phil Motter looking across this one-room schoolhouse office that we had. He looked at me, he says, Jim, he said, I got a lot more than I bargained for. I said, oh, really? And what was that? He said, well, I'm talking about you. Well, I'll take that as a compliment. He says, you take it as a compliment because I mean it. And I have more stock than you, and I want that to be equal. I said, really? I said, well, that's unheard of. So you're going to He said, equalize our shares. You either just add to your shares. The best thing to do is just take shares from me and we'll transfer them over to you. And we'll just call it a Scribner's error. I said, okay. You always meant it that way. He said, yeah, I probably always did. I just never got around to it. And now that we're going to have an asset in the holding company, which is the bank, because we're getting ready to close on it, I want us to have the same number of shares. So, we had a million, he had 1,000,007 shares, I had 1,000,005 shares. So there was a couple 100,000 shares in the balance. So he gave me, we did the calculation. I did the calculation for him, actually. And he said, okay, we'll just, I'll just give up some shares and we'll transfer them over to you. I said, okay. Now that takes quite a gentleman to. He didn't have to do that. We made a deal. I accepted the deal. I was happy with the deal. I didn't complain at all. How could I complain? The man was the nicest man I ever met, other than my father-in-law, which happened to be the nicest man I ever met until I met Phil. And did business with him and be a business partner, and the honor, when you're a business partner, it's kind of like a marital partner in a sense, in a psychological sense, of course. And when things get tough in business, boy, you could just start growling your teeth back and forth, whatever. Not with Phil. He was a total gentleman at all times. He was a very religious fellow, and I was less of a religious fellow. I was brought up, we went to church every once in a while. It wasn't like there was a time, I think, where we went every week. And then there was a time where we didn't go every week. Whatever. So I wasn't, I think Marilyn's family, I don't know. I was not the most religious person I could have been. I don't know. I was a scientist. I'll put it that way. So, a lot of the things you had to believe in religion, I just didn't understand, or it wasn't explained to me properly. It's probably that way. And then later on in life, when I was away at college, I became a biochemist. So I didn't really have time for religion, so to speak. I became academic. I have to admit, in high school, in almost every part of my schooling, my mother would probably say, if she could answer, hey, Mom, was Jimmy a good student? She'd say, no, not really. She tutored me. We had outside tutors. We had this. We had that. Jimmy, why are you such a dumb cup? She didn't say that, but my father probably. Whoops. Don't respond to that. Yeah. Siri, stop. Siri. It was answering my question. Siri, we're done. It's serious to talk. Every time I say the wrong thing too loud, I get these devices that constantly popping up. These. Siri, stop. Anyway. I was not a good student. Period. And there we go. But in my first half of my freshman year, I was not a good student. But I'll say that that's probably because, it was the first time you live away from mom and dad, and you're living on your own, and you can stay out as late as you want, which I wasn't a stay out kind of person anyway. And I wasn't the kind of person that would sit around and drink all day either. So that wasn't really a problem. Some people that's a problem, but that wasn't the problem I had. I was always a busy person. So I was either busy playing, like they didn't have a lot of video games, in 1492 when I went to college. I had Pong, and that wasn't probably until 90, so all during college, you didn't have video games. You had card games. So if a student was going to go awry, so to speak, first time being away from mom and dad, you'd play cards all night. Well, I couldn't do that either, because I became academic, actually, realistically, honestly. And so academic means that I was interested in learning what I was being taught. How about that? For a unique principle when you're in school. I was actually interested in learning what was being taught and knowing what I was being taught, even more importantly. And I became, very academically interested. So I was like a chemistry major and a minor, I don't know what. So, it turned out, I took a lot of math, because if you're going to be a chemist, chemistry, you had to know math, so I took a lot of math. Probably took more math than I should have. I did okay in math. I got A minuses, let's put it that way. Sometimes very minuses. B plus, A minus. I was challenged with math, I have to say. I studied it, but I had to pay attention. And you have to pay attention to everything when you're in college, because, it's all new stuff. It's a higher level of learning, all that kind of stuff. And staying in school is a lot more difficult than getting into school, certain circumstances. So I became a chemist. Then I became interested in biochemistry. And then I thought, well, why not pre-med? What could be more biochemistry than medicine? So then I became, like a pre-med student, which means I had to have more biology. And I actually, I took a class in my sophomore year, my freshman semester of my sophomore year. I decided I wanted to take microbiology. And I had to go to the teacher. I had to go to the head of the department. They wouldn't let me register for it. They said, well, you can't take that. It's a 371 class. I said, really? 371, microbiology. And the publisher was Weber, White, and Manning. And they said, well, I can't approve you to take that class because it's 371 and you don't have any of the biology prerequisites. I said, you mean like basic biology? what would that have anything to do with or cryptogamic botany or whatever? I forget actually. What was the name? I'm trying to think of the name of the class. It was a 371 class, and it was either cryptogamic botany or microbiology. I think it was microbiology. You know, you have microscopes and you draw pictures. They didn't have the digital, you snap a thing in your eyepiece and you end up with a beautiful picture of some amoeba that you're looking at, or the parts of an amoeba. You know, they had an electron microscope. That's about as far as they got with the electronics and, electron microscopy. How about that for a word? Electron microscopy. When you look at that word, you try to figure out how to pronounce it. Where do you put the accents in the right syllables? Yeah, electron microscopy. Anyway, so it was the 371 class, and I was like a first semester sophomore, second year. And the faculty member of that class said, "I'm sorry, I can't register for you in that class because you haven't had any of the prerequisites." I said, "Well, there isn't any prerequisites for, microbiology." I think that's what it was. There aren't any prerequisites. You have the only classes underneath that in the freshman year is, Biology 1 and Biology 2, and it has nothing to do with microbiology, It's plants and animals and all that stuff. It's not microscopy stuff. Oh, sorry, you're going to have to go to the head of the department, and he has to approve it. So, oh God. I said, all right, who's that? So I had to go meet with the head of the department of microbiology. And I meet with the dean, the dean of the College of Science or something. And I meet with this fine guy. And he says, well, you haven't had... He said, well, James, you haven't had any of the prerequisites. I said, I know. That's what Professor, said. There aren't any prerequisites for microbiology because you've got Biology 1 and Biology 2, and it's basically animals and plants and animals. No petri dishes, no microscopes, plants and animals. I think it was animals first and plants second. I said, that's not really your prerequisite. I looked at the textbook, and there's not a single chapter in the book that has anything to do with Biology 1 and Biology 2. He says, well, I never thought of it that way. I felt like saying, well, you can't say that again. That's my favorite comeback when someone says, I never thought of it that way. Well, you can't say that again because I thought of it that way. And now you're hearing me thinking of it that way. So what do you think? Why don't you let me into class? He said, well, it's a 371. It's almost like they had the same bullet points. They sent a fax over to him before I got over there. Yeah, and I had to go to another building, of course, to go see him because he doesn't sit there while students are being registered in all the classes, in the week or the 2 weeks before school starts or whatever it is. Anyway, so Dr. whatever his name is said, all right, I'll let you in the class on a conditional basis. I said, oh my God, what would that be? He said, the condition is that you have to pass the first, the first semester test. In your semester, we have a midterm and a final. It's just 2 tests. If you don't pass the midterm test, then you're out. I said, out? O-U-T? He said, yep. You will not be able to continue the class unless you pass the midterm test. I said, okay. What's a passing grade? He said, well, it depends on how everyone else does, because we grade on a curve. There are 20 students in the class, and there probably won't be more than 20 students in the class, because after all, it is a 371 class. If I heard that once, I heard it 20 times. Yes, sir, it is a 371 class, and I'd be proud to be part of it. And so I remember the first day I walked into class, because it's a 371 class. And I walk in this laboratory thing. It's not a classroom. You got all the, all the rows and, all the stuff. You got all these laboratory tables, and you got all these characters in there with, lab coats, like they're already medical doctors. They got the lab jackets on that go right down, above the knee, and they're buttoned up tight, and they're all nice and white, and they're all 19 of them are sitting there, and Jimmy walks in, with golf pants and a golf shirt on, which is, standard school attire, or maybe it was a button-down collar, with no tie. Let's say that, with golf pants, which are, like, not suit pants, because you don't have a sport coat, or, sport coat pants, which I would call golf pants. Nice, $50 pants, which today are probably $130 pants. But back then they were $35 pants. Anyway, because we're talking $14.92 after all. Anyway, so I walk in this place with casual khaki pants on and a blue and white checkered shirt tucked in, nice brown belt, no tie, shirt's buttoned all the way up, not the top button, because, one button open, and everyone else has got the lab jackets on. I looked over to the professor. I said, is lab jackets required? He says, no, but it is a 371 class. That was the 19th time I've heard that. He says, remember what our rules are? And I said, yes, I remember. So, I'm like 19 years old, and everyone's like 23 years old. Oh, boy. Second semester junior class. And that was the first semester. It was like heresy. It's like, holy mackerel. Okay. I guarantee you I'm going to pass this midterm. So we're going, so it's like 6 weeks into the class, Okay, it's midterm week. He gets me aside. He said, how I agreed to have you in here. And of course, there's no like quizzes or anything, it's just bam. They give you midterm tests, you either pass, fail, or everything in between. And, it was graded. A, B, C, D, A minus, B, B plus, like that, all the way down to, F, I guess. And the bad part is, they have the, a hand typed, because, you didn't really have computer kind of stuff, so much in those early days. So the hand typed, maybe it wasn't hand typed, maybe it was a little computer printout. And it had, the names, last name, comma, first name, middle initial, space out a little bit. It'd say, A plus, B plus, B minus, C plus, and all the, the A's and the B's and the C's. There weren't too many A's. There were only like a couple of A's, a few B's. There were only 20 in the class, so, then it goes F, last two. You don't want to be in the bottom of the list. It wasn't in alphabetical order. It was in order of the grade. So if you got the highest grade, you're in the top of the list. If you got the lowest grade, your name was on the bottom of the list, and everybody in between. There might have been 24 in that class, come to think of it. So anyway, it was a 12 page examination, and it had like 24 questions on it, and some of the questions had multiple parts. And the second half of this was most of the test was like essay answers. You get, oh God, I hate essay answers because the grading of it is so subjective, and I'm a left-handed person, so I don't write real well. I learned how to type real well. I said, can I go home and get my portable typewriter and type my answers? He says, no, James, you'll handwrite the answers. You'll take the examination like everyone else does. Yes, sir. So, it was tough because if I didn't pass the test, which means I had to get a C or C. I guess I could have gotten a C minus, but it had to be C or better, or else I'm out, and I lose the $240 that the class cost. That was indelibly imprinted into my brain because it was $245 to register for that class. It was $245 for every other class also. And it's not, it wasn't a premium for the class, and it wasn't a discount. That's what it was. So if you took, I took six or seven classes, 6 times 250 is, that's what the 6-month tuition was. Then you had room, and you had to pay for your room, and you had to pay for your food, room and board, and plus $250 a class for tuition. So if I didn't pass that test, I wasted 6 weeks of my life trying to learn it, and I lost $250. Plus I paid $25 for the textbook, or $45. I think it was $45. Yeah, they didn't give the books away. Oish. Wow. Yep. So, anyway, so I'm sitting in the class. Now so we took the test on, I'm going to say Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So it was 3 days a week. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, every week. So we took the test on a Friday. And then the next Monday or Wednesday, we get the test back. You got this big stack of papers because there was like 8 or 10 pages to this test stapled. Can you imagine? And it's legal size paper. It was long paper. I actually saved the test somewhere in my bookcase there. I couldn't throw it away. It was a statutory moment for Jimmy, and the second half of my freshman year. I was showing signs of becoming academic, and so for sure, the first half of my sophomore year, I was academic. I mean, really, I decided, and it is a choice. You either are or you're not, and it's not because you can or you can't. Generally, it's because you've decided not to. You play cards and you drink and you gamble, or I wasn't. I was the kind of kid that I wasn't a big kid, so I wasn't playing football, baseball, or But I'm told I was a smart kid. Not that I remember, but I took apart things. I took apart clocks. I took apart TVs. I took apart radios. I built radios. Um, I had you know, a license to broadcast radio, and I took apart televisions and turned them into. I took apart two televisions and converted them into what is commonly known among technology people, oscilloscope, which is a scope that measures frequency and usually has wavy lines that go through the display, and you see the S wave, for the 60 cycle per second, alternating current. If you were to put the probes of an oscilloscope and stick them in a socket, it would show a sine wave. It looks like an S on its side. That's why they call it a sine wave. Yeah. Oh, that's an oscilloscope. Let's look it up. How about that? Pull down the middle of the screen. OSCILLYSCOPE. See if I spelled that right. Oscilloscope. There we go. Oscilloscope. There you go. See the sine wave? There's a sine wave. So let's just look at that. You see the S wave right there? And then if you speak into a microphone and plug that into the oscilloscope, you end up with a wavy pattern that looks like that. And then here's a traditional 60 cycle per second sine wave, if you will. And that could be what is typically something that you'd see if you were talking into the microphone and a microphone was attached to the probes of the oscilloscope. Let's go back. Just look up the oscilloscope. There you go. Oh, that's it. Let's look at this one. So this is oh, come on. So this is let's expand this. There we go. That is now without all the dials stuff, because remember I took apart a television and I converted the display, because back in the day the display tube of a television was a round tube, but it had a rectangular mask in front of it, so you didn't know it was a round tube unless you stuck your face into it, which of course I did. But people sitting back and they have felt tape and everything around it, so you couldn't really peek around the edges inside the mask, because the mask outlined the tube into a rectangle, the rectangular dimension of what TV looks like. If you buy a countertop TV. But anyway, if you took the mask off the front of the tube, it would look round like this. So my S curve was right smack in the middle of this round tube, because that's that. Now, all these different dials is set the frequency, the horizontal and vertical frequencies of what you're looking at. Whether you're plugging it into the AC current or you have DC current, and whatever you're measuring the frequency of or the amplitude of. So an oscilloscope can measure amplitude like 1 volt, 2 volt, 3 volt, 10 volt, 100 volt, 1000 volt, or the frequency, or both. That's what all these dials have to do with. The intensity of the screen, the trigger, these little black ones down here in the middle, that's contrast, brightness, background, all that stuff. There we go. Search. So we just look at. Welcome to Oscilloscopes. Oscilloscope.net. There we go. No, I don't like that search result. Let's. Digital oscilloscopes. The best ones. There we go. Now let's. So you can look at it. They've got hand scopes. Back in the day, they didn't have them for the hand. I imagine I could put a plug in with my iPhone and create an oscilloscope out of my iPhone. Let's see, there you go. The horizontal line was time, and the vertical line was frequency or amplitude. And with alternating current, the voltage goes through a positive phase and then a negative phase, and a positive phase, and 60 times a second, it switches. That's why they call it alternating current. There you go. Now, in the medical scoping, you see in the multi-graph display, you got your heart rate on there, you got your breathing rate on there, you have, scales on there showing your blood pressure and, your pulse. Those are all, formulations of an oscilloscope. Anyway, so when I was a kid, 10, 12 years old, I was taking apart TVs where other students were out there playing, football or baseball or something like that. To me, that was all kind of boring. Plus, I was not, when I was 14 years old, I was like 130 pounds soaking wet. Standing 5'8", so I wasn't big and tall, and I wasn't stout and heavy. I was just a skinny little kid. I changed that over the years. I became lean and mean. I was a runner-up, not a finalist, but I was a runner-up in the New York State Physical Fitness testing. Remember the Kennedy 1963, 62 presidential physical fitness? I was like, I ranked very high in the state of New York. And there are a lot of kids in the state of New York. Anyway, so I became academic and I became physically fit. I had a little barbell set and I did my exercising and did my push-ups and my sit-ups and everything you had to do to be a contestant in the New York State Physical Fitness testing. And we had the final exam, the quarterfinals, semifinals. It was in the finals of the New York State Physical Fitness. It was at West Point, and I scored in the top 10. I think I scored in the top 5 of the top 10, but I don't remember which, so I'll just say the top 10, which there's millions of kids in New York State at the time. So, and oh boy, West Point, they wanted me. Oh, they wanted me. Oh, they were all over me to enlist. I said, I don't think so. I think my mother would have a heart attack. No, I'm going to Union College, baby. I've already been accepted. I am going to Union College, and I don't think there's a way that we can talk my parents out of that. Particularly my mother. She was, pretty adamant. I got a couple of really good job offers before that, actually, with the grocery store manager came up to my mother and said, "We would like to keep Jimmy on. We would like to give him a full-time position, and we're going to give him the elite position in the meat department. Swear to God. We want to make a butcher out of him. Right? You got the butcher, the baker, and the candlestick maker? Oh, yes. It was a Publix it wasn't a Publix family thing. It was called H.C. Bohack. I don't know if they exist today in the state of New York, Long Island. H.C., 2 letters. H like Harry, C like Charlie. Bohack with a B. A-B, C. H.C. Bohack. That was what was written on my paycheck. And I was a stock boy. Stock boy with a mop, by the way, in case someone, spilt, dropped a jar of gefilte fish or something. Jimmy, stock boy with a mop, wanted in lane 7. Oh, I knew what that was. Someone dropped a jar of gefilte fish, and boy, did they smell. So, get over there quick and mop it up. Stock boy with a mop, wanted in ladies layaway. Anyway, so that was Jimmy. I'd run around with the mop. I'd mop it up, and it's a multi-step process. Anyway, they wanted to make me a butcher, which was actually, that was a big deal. That was an honorary, because the meat department people, they're very picky. And they said, "Oh, Jimmy's a good worker, and he's a smart kid. He'll learn all the cuts, and the different cuts of meat, and beef and pork and all that kind of stuff. You push the machine and you cut the slice to roast the beef. You want the slice of roast the beef?" "Yes, ma'am. No problem." Whoops! And you slap it on. You slap it on the scale. Oh boy. Yep, that'll be $4.59. It's probably 39 cents a pound. Today it's $4.59 a pound. You slice a pound of that and it costs you $16 or something. Oh boy. No. I didn't do the butcher job because I was going to Union College. I got accepted. They paid the tuition. The upfront money. There was an upfront money of some kind. I don't remember what that was. I remember it cost $250 a class, though. I do remember that. So. And after my freshman year, I paid. I told my mother, I said, "Tell Dad, but I'm paying the rest of my way. So just, put the money in a savings account or something or other. I don't, don't send it to me because I'm going to send it back. Thank you very much. But I'm going to do it. I'm going to see if I can do it myself because I'm going to get a job in the kitchen. And I'm going to get a job in the dormitory as a dormitory counselor since I'm a sophomore now. And they've already accepted me as a counselor in the, which basically means 2 times a night 3 times a day you have to walk the halls. Every hall in the dormitory. And it was a 3-story building, and God knows how long it was. And I had to walk all the halls, 3 or 4-story building. I kind of forget which. Probably a 3-story. And they paid me, a couple $100 a semester. $250 a semester. It was not a lot of money. Plus, if there was any outbreaks, emergency call goes to you. You get a special phone in your room, and the phone rings. You got to answer the phone and find out what the emergency is. And, someone passed out in room 327. I'd have to run up into 327 and see if the student was dead or alive, needing medical, whatever. So I was Johnny on the spot, resident counselor. So I did that for, what the heck? Paid 600 hours a year, 300 hours a semester. That's a guess. And then I was a lab rat in the physical, the, the physics department. It was a science building, not athletics, like physical fitness. No, the physics department with Dr. Robert R. Reese. Robert R. Reese. He was an acoustics engineer with AT&T, or the Bell system, Bell Telephone Company, I should say. And with Dr. Robert R. Reese. Then I became a lab instructor. But anyway, so I was a lab rat, which means I set up the experiments, in the 20 tables or whatever where the students had, so I'd set up all these things with the screws and nuts and bolts. And he and I would set up table number 1, or the table, the setup in the front of the classroom with all the different rods and knobs and things that you had. A specific academic toolkit. And, he said, now you set up this station right here on all the rest of the tables. So that, take me all night to do that. So the next morning, all these tabletops would be all set up with the experiments. And I said, Dr. Reese, you know what I think we should do? I said, I think the last 20 minutes of the period, we should give a parts list out. We should give a parts list out to all the students. This is after I set up everybody for the first week. And usually you spent the whole week working on an experiment that had multiple, segments to it. And literally. So then the next week comes up, and I said, Dr. Reese, how about if we have a little change to the plan? Since we have more and more students signing up for these classes, why don't we give them a parts list, by week? I hand it out at the end of the prior week, and they set up their own stations so they understand. How do we set it up? We'll set up yours so they'll understand what it looks like when it's all put together. And we'll give them a parts list, Friday afternoon, or Friday class. So the Monday class, they get there and they set up their own laboratory station, so to speak. They have the example up in the front of the classroom, so it gives them a little spatial recognition, and they understand the parts and the tubes and the columns and the base and the knobs and the screws. And he said, that's a good idea. That way they get to, I said, absolutely. Of course, it also saved Jimmy from having to set up 24 tables. You know how many iron rods there are and bases, and oh my God, you got to dust them off. And that. I said, let all these kids dust them off. Why the heck should I dust? I could do it. Dr. Reese said, no, that'd be fine. I'd do it. I said, that'd be a good idea, don't you think? They'd give them spatial I used a couple of vocabulary words. Yes, spatial recognition. Yeah, you know, you got the angles of the dangles and all this stuff. Yes, sirree, Bob. So that was a change in the physical sciences building. They were doing it the other way for 50 years before, Jimmy. But no, Jimmy gets in there and starts changing things. Dr. Reese says, you know what? I never thought of that. That's a really good idea, James. He called me James. I said, you know, the only other person on this planet that calls me James is my mother when she's mad at me. Otherwise, it's Jimmy. But you can call me James because it's a formal name, and it is my name, actually. That's what it says right on the... He said, yeah, I'll call you James. I said, yes, sir. Dr. Reese, I'm not going to call you Robert, that's for sure. He said, no, that wouldn't be good. He said you could if we're, you know, if you're at my house for dinner or something. No, I wouldn't do that. Dr. Reese, you're going to be Dr. Reese forever, as far as I'm concerned. You're entitled to that recognition. You've worked hard for it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so I was a lab instructor. Then he elevated me to lab instructor. He said, so I will teach the first half of the class, and you will teach the laboratory class. I said, really? I said, I kind of like that. He said, we're going to give you a raise also. So instead of getting 67 cents an hour, I got $1.23 an hour or something. I mean, it was like nuts numbers, you know, compared to today. Really, it was, I swear to God, it was like $1.25. It went from 78 cents to $1.25. A 50-cent raise. But, yeah, what the heck? Yeah. So I became a lab instructor for physics classes. Very interesting classes, you know. I became very academic. Yes, sir. Oh, anyway, going back to my class. We're talking about all this stuff. So, going down memory lane here. So when I told you I was in this class, and if I didn't, this was biochemistry or something. No, it was microbiology. Oh my God. If I didn't pass the semester test, the what do you call it? The 6 weeks class. Semifinal? Yeah. But you had the final and the semifinal. It's like a half a final. It was a 6-week class, 6-week test, 8-week test, something like that. And then you had the final exam. You only have 2 tests in this class. You got the semifinal and the final. And the semifinal, you have to pass or you're out. Okay. I'll do it. I'll pass it. You can write me down in ink. I will be in this class for the duration. You will not be discharging me. I promise. You have got my solemn promise. Whew. So, of course, these books, you know, the pages were very thin, and you had to go through half the book. Yeah, so the semifinal covers, you know, 250, 300-page book. You had to know 150 pages of stuff. My library, I should have one. I should have that book somewhere. It had a red cover, and I believe the publisher was Weber, Wright, and Manning. We can look that up one day, not now. Well, guess what? So let me just set this up a little bit. So all these guys are sitting around in their lab jackets, and I'm in the very back end of the room somewhere, the middle of the back of the room, not in the very corner, because I didn't want to make it look like I was going to duck out the back door. So I went 2 seats in from the back door in the very back row, because you had all these guys in their white jackets, and they were all senior classmen, and I'm an junior classman or whatever. I was a sophomore, first semester sophomore, which means, I looked like I was 12. When I was 20, I looked like 12. God knows what I looked like when I was 19. Oh boy. So he's got these big stack of papers on his arm, because it was like, I think it was a 12-page test on legal size paper. Maybe it was 10 pages. It was a lot of pages. I'm going through page after page. It was like 3 questions a page. And you had the question, and then you had this much space for an answer. Then you had another question. It was like 3 or 4 questions per page. And, covered 8 or 10 pages. So, and you had to handwrite all the answers. Oh, my God. And my handwriting is like, I didn't drag my hand around this way. I wrote straight up and down. Anyway, right-handed writes like this. Left-handers, you see, they drag the pen, so they rip their hand all the way around that way. I didn't do that. I was straight up and down, like a graphic artist. Yeah. I didn't do that because of that. I just did it straight up and down. So it was, it was laborious for me to handwrite a lot of stuff, particularly in a hurry, because you're trying to, answer questions. You had so many questions, you had so many answers. You had to do it, promptly, because you only had 3 hours, right? So, oh boy. So he's got this whole armful of test results, and they write the score on there, and then, the A, B, C, D, E, you circle it, is in red. And it was like a big, B plus, whatever. So he looked at the top of the stack, and then he'd look at the student, and he'd look at the top of the stack, and then he'd hand the student the paper. And then he'd look at the next one, and he'd find that student, Mr. Miller. So Mr. Miller would raise his hand. So the teacher would walk over to that student, look at the paper, look at the student, look at the paper, look at the student, hand the student the paper. He did that. I mean, it took him like 20 minutes to hand out all these papers to 24 students. He goes, then Mr. James, he'd raise his hand. Then he'd walk over to find Mr. James. Miss Alexander, and he'd walk over to that one. Look at the paper, look at the student. Look at the paper, look at the student. And I'm thinking to myself, now how is he answering? How is he handing out these papers? Is it alphabetical order? It's not reverse alphabetical order, because I'm Wilson and I would have gotten mine already. How many Z's can there be? I'm Wilson. So it could be alphabetical order, because I'm Wilson and I haven't gotten mine yet. So is it high to low? Is it low to high? What is there? There has to be a reason code on how he's handing these out. Because Dr. Reese, these academic people, they're very academic. And they always have a reason on how they do things. And they've been doing it a while. They all had gray hair, so they've been doing it a long time. And some of them came out of industry and then started teaching, which Dr. Reese, he was a Bell Telephone company, had engineers, audio engineers, electrical engineers, all kinds of mechanical engineers, graphic artists, engineers, what do they call those people? Graphic artists, designers. He was a sound engineer. Anyway, so these teachers have reasons on how and why they do things. So he's handing out these papers. He's going around the class. Look at the student. Look at the paper. Look at the student. Look at the paper. Hand him the paper. And I'm tortured and wondering, how is he handing these papers out? And when we get down to the last 5 or 6 students, I'm thinking, it's got to be alphabetical order. it's either that or it's high to low. And the last few papers are the lowest scores. So it's either alphabetical or high to low. And I'm just dying. I'm just sitting there, I'm sitting there like a tree stump because I'm wondering, am I going to be in Wednesday's class, or am I going to be gone? Because he reminded me, when the quarter was up or something, halfway through before you get to this, he talked to me. He says, "How are we doing?" I said, I think I'm doing well. I'm doing all the laboratory exercises, and I read everything at least once. I'm reading through it a second time, so it's not like I'm reading things for the first time. I'm reading things for at least the second time. He said, "Well, that's good." He said, I guarantee you, everyone in this class has not read through everything once. So you're probably the only one that's read everything once. I said, "Yes, I'm halfway through reading it the second time. And before we do our semester test, I would probably have read it the third time." Just what doesn't get in. I've noticed that I pick things up the second time through that I missed the first time through. He said, "Yes." I said, "So I imagine the third time through, I'll even pick up more." He said, "You probably will." So I said, "Well, before the semester test, or the semester test is halfway through the class, and then the final test is at the end of the class." Yeah. So for the semester test, I would have read, these 150 pages at least 3 times. Underlining and everything, and listening to your lectures and all this stuff. He said, "Well, you're probably going to do fine." He said, "But you know what our condition is?" I said, "Yes, sir. I haven't forgotten. Even though I look 12, I'm not." I didn't say that. That would have been disrespectful. But that's what I was thinking to myself. I know I look 12, but I'm not. Anyway, so we're getting down to the last 3 handouts of these tests. My God, please be alphabetical order. It can't be, low to high, because, that would be totally unthinkable. So, turns out, everybody's got their test back except for me. He said, "Mr. Wilson?" I said, "Yes, I'm in the back here." He walks over to me, looks at the test, looks at me, looks at the test, looks at me, hands me a thing. He said, "Mr. Wilson got the highest grade in the class." I go, "Oh, shit." I'm thinking of I got my head in my hand like, oh, shit. All these guys in the white jackets, all these boys and girls, they're looking at me. I'm the schmutz here sitting in a golf shirt. And I got the A plus, baby. Yes, sir. I got 97, I think. I didn't get 100. I got 97. But it was the highest grade in the class. He took off three points for syntax. And one of my, they're all essay questions, it seemed like. And, I kind of like had a sentence backwards. When you handwrite stuff, sometimes your brain works faster than your hand. And I looked at that sentence and I figured, what does that mean? He had like arrows flipping the front from the back, and, the beginning of the sentence to the end of the sentence. He said, "I know what you meant there, but you didn't quite have it perfect, so it couldn't give you 100. I said, that's all right. 97 works. A plus, baby. So that set the academic standard that now I had to live up to. So that helped me for the next 3.5. Yeah, because I was like in a 5-year, biochemistry thing. It's a 5-year plan, not a 4-year plan. So I had, as the first semester sophomore, I didn't have 2 years to go. I had 3.5 years to go. So anyway, that set the stage for me, because I figured, you know what? Everybody is going, because word's going to spread around. Well, I guess for the semifinal, they don't post the names on the board. Some classes did and some classes didn't. He handed them out because I didn't know what I got until maybe he pins them up after the class. Either that or he just wanted to hand this out. I forget. I know the final exams, they go on the door. You don't get them back. They don't talk to you. The final, the highest grade's on the top of the list and the lowest grade's on the bottom of the list. So anyway, apparently in that class, the first couple of scores weren't good, and because I got the highest score, and that set the tone for me for my next, for 3.5 years there, because the word got out that this little schmutz without the white jacket skunked everybody on the semester test. Oh, I did. That was, and it was all these essay questions. I mean, crap. Geez, I could get killed on this. I not only have to answer, it's not like fill in the blank or, memorize vocabulary words, which I did, and multiple choice, so you can pick the best answer. I was really good at that. Even if it's fill in the best answer, but essay questions, Dr. Reese, what are you doing to me? Yep. So that was the beginning of the beginning for me to do real well. And I did well. Certain classes I did well. As a chemistry major, which was probably a mistake. I shouldn't, although I made some very good friends, faculty friends in the chemistry department. Dr. Nicholas Poulos. Took biochemistry with him. Biochemistry 1 and biochemistry 2, I think. Or it was chemistry. And I scored very well on all that. I worked real hard on that. It had all these big words. I had to learn how to speak the words before I could learn the words. It was just a language thing with me. If I could not pronounce the word, I would not be able to spell the word or remember the word, for that matter. It was important for me to look at that big long word and know how to pronounce it. Like electron microscopy? No, it's electron microscopy. And it's a big word. Let's see if I... Siri? How do you spell electron microscopy?
Electron microscopy. ELECTRONmicroscopy.
Yes. There it is in the bottom corner of your screen. All right. But when you see it in a scientific journal, it's not electron microscopy. It's electron microscopy. It's one word. But anyway, Siri decided to make it 2 words. It's 1 word. It's a big, long word. And you have to learn how to see, like microscopy. I guess that's a word. Microscopy. Anyway, this is, you see the news here with getting off my academic stuff. Anyway, so yeah, that was a scary moment when I was sitting in that class. I remember going through, oh geez, I hope he's not handing out the first one is the highest grade and the bottom of the stack is the lowest grade. You know, that's how I would have handed them out. But no, he had them the reverse way. I guess he probably had him the other way. If you look at that little whippersnipper, he beat the pants out for everybody. He said, Mr. Wilson not only got the highest grade, he got the only A in the class. Everyone else got less than James. Be it known. Thinking, oh, crap. Stop saying that. Oh, shit. Oh, sugar. But it really, I mean, I was embarrassed. Yeah, you're embarrassed. I put my hand in I was trying to hide. Nothing to do. Everyone's got lab jackets on. You know, I got a green golf shirt on. Yes, sir. He put he thumbtacked the list on the front door. He said, this is a list of everybody's grades. Read it. Mr. Wilson's on the top of the list. He's a first semester sophomore, by the way. All you upperclassmen. He beat the pants off you. I'm thinking to myself, couldn't have said it better myself. Thank God it wasn't, the reverse alphabetical order or, whatever permutation I was afraid of. I didn't think it would be, low to high. That was the lowest probability that I would be on the very bottom of the pile with the highest grade. I figured, the top of the pile was the highest grade. The bottom of the pile is the lowest grade. That's you give the student that did the best the paper out first. Nah, he wanted to make me sweat it out. No, he didn't want to do it for that reason. He wanted to he had this big production, to hand out these papers because the kid that was going to get thrown out of the class if he didn't pass it, he skunked them all and got the highest grade. It was 50 years, 60 years, how many years later? A long time ago. I'll never forget that one. Holy mackerel. Yes, sir. Well, I became a study-aholic. So, my rule was, I had this, let's see, Dick, last name with an S. Not Schenectady, he came from Schenectady. Anyway, Dick something. He told me, he said, Jimmy, I go over to the classroom building. He said, these dormitories are too noisy. The library, you're always looking around and people walking around. You get a pretty girl walks by, your head looks away. He said, I need to go into an empty classroom. Go in the class, sneak into the classroom building. And you go up to the second or third floor, turn on the light, sit in the teacher's, in the table up front. And you can spread your books out around. And, you stay there for a couple hours and you get some real good studying in because, there's no one floating around in the classroom building. After, 5 or 6 o'clock, everything basically shuts up. You got the janitors, they clean up, and all that, and they sweep the floors and whatever. So that's what I did. I said, Dave Waltz. That's his name. had that wrong. David Waltz from Schenectady, New York. David. I said, all right, David, you think I could come along with you? He said, yeah. So then we were like in the same classroom. He said, no, you take one classroom and I'll go in another classroom. That way you get the big desk up front. Or else, you don't have enough room to spread out. And, he said, so, and then we'll, at midnight, we'll wrap it up and get out of here together. And we got to know the guard, so the guard would let us in and the guard would let us out. So we got there at, 5:30, 6:30, 7:30. So at 8 o'clock, we got there, it was deadline. You got to be sitting in the classroom at 8 o'clock. So at 7:30, we'd gather our stuff together and get ready to go. He lived, in a different floor or whatever. I didn't actually know where he was in the dormitory. I didn't even know if he was in the same building as I was. We'd meet up. We had a meeting location, and then we'd walk over to the classroom building together, one of the older classroom buildings, and we get in the building somehow. I don't think they locked them until 8. And we got there before 8. So the door was unlocked, so we just go in and go to our, go up into the middle of the building, and he'd pick one room and I'd pick the other room, and, an adjacent room. And we'd study from 8 until midnight, 8, 9, 10, 11. All of 8, all of 9, all of 10, all of 11. So 3 or 4 hours a night. 4 hours. So 4 hours a night, Sunday through Thursday. Friday was a weekend. Friday, Saturday were weekend nights. But Sunday through Thursday, there were study nights. And that's how I played it every, and you'd take several classes worth of books and notes up, into the classroom building each night so you wouldn't run out of stuff to study, because you had 2 or 3 classes the next day, so you probably took those classes up with you that night. But not many students studied more than 4 hours a night. I fiddle-faddled around during the day. I didn't necessarily study so much, during the, during the day, because you're doing this, you're doing that, you got track and field, you got gym, and you got different classes. You have to dress differently for different, kinds of classes, and you had to take some kind of gym thing, track and field, basketball, baseball, football, and of course I wasn't basketball or football unless they roll me up and kick me around the field. It's funny, my first semester freshman year, I was 3 in a room. So I was an undergraduate freshman with 2 senior classmen basketball players. Bobby Cox was one of them, and another guy. They were both big basketball players. And then you had little Jimmy. I felt like I was a Lilliputian. That was funny. So I'm rooming with 2 basketball players and Jimmy. I said, well, what did they figure? There are 2.5 in this room? And Bobby Cox came to school from a farm that grew corn. And you know what kind of corn it was? Popcorn. I said, Bobby, you bring the popcorn, I'll get the popper. And that's what we did. I got the popper, he got the popcorn, and I guess he brought the oil also, because he had a special kind of oil to cook it in. He said, yeah, the corn we grew was popcorn. We had a couple big fields of popcorn. I'll bring a big 5-pound bag of popcorn, And we'll probably not eat all that by the time, I go back home to get a refill. He got the big sack of popcorn in the corner of the room. And I'll tell you what, I'd get that that rotary popcorn, made by Sunbeam. Boy, I'll tell you what, we had that sucker running every night. So we'd play. Anyway, so we go down to the cafeteria at 5 o'clock. When that door opened at 5 o'clock, 5 p.m., we were on the line for dinner. And it was cafeteria style, so you just scoop what you wanted. And you get to the end of the line, you have to show your food card to, verify you're a student. So at 5:30 we were done. Yeah. You'd eat and talk and eat and talk and talk and eat and talk. And then you're done. You turn in your tray and, you dump what you didn't eat in the trash can and put the plates in the, not in the machine, you squeeze them in the window. But since we were the first to eat, we were likely the first to finish, or of the first. And then we'd go to the student union, play pool, billiards, 8 ball, 9 ball, 12 balls, 15 balls, whatever. Rack them up. We'd shoot pool from 5:30 to 7. And then it was, or 5:30 to 7:30, 2 hours of pool. Or we'd go back to my room, turn one of the doors up, like a sliding door thing, a half door. So we'd take that off the track and put it on top of a couple of apple crates. And it turned out to be a pinochle table. And we played pinochle for 2 hours. 7:30, 5:30, 6:30, 7:30. At 7:30, I'd wrap it up. 7:45, be the latest. I said, I gotta pack up my stuff and going over to the study. I never told them where I was studying. I go over, eventually they knew. Go over to the classroom building and study. Can't do it in the dormitory. I just cannot focus with all the noise in the hallways and people coming in the room. Hey, Jimmy, you want me? Get out of here. Leave me alone. So, then it interrupts you. Then it takes you 10 minutes to get back to where you were. So you get over in the classroom building and you don't get interruptions. I was focused on being academic since I got the A+ on my microbiology first test. Holy crap. Those people were so pissed. Because if I wasn't there, the B+ would have been the highest grade in the class, and that person would have gotten the A. But nope, I got the A instead of that person. Now, if there were 2 scores up in that high 90 part, then we both would have gotten A's. But since I was the only person that got 90, a score of 90 or better, I had the only A. Excuse me. Oh, God almighty. Can you imagine? That made me academic. It made me a pre-med student. I almost went to med school. I took the MCAT, the Medical College Admission Test, and did very well on it. Oh, I scored so high on that. The Kentucky people gave me, the UK gave me a scholarship to go to their medical school. Oh, God. And I didn't take it. You dumbass. Because I was engaged to a girl whose father was a doctor, and she said, "Oh, no, I'm not marrying you if you're going to be a doctor because I never knew my father, and I don't want, if we're going to have kids, my kids not knowing who their father is, much less I don't know who you are." I said, oh, shit. So I guess I'll have to forego my scholarship. Really? He said, well, if you want me, Erica, her name was Erica, then, you can't do that. You may go to medical school, but you can't be a doctor. I said, well, that wouldn't make sense. She said, no, probably wouldn't. So I forewent my scholarship, and then she dumped me 6 months later. She went to Case Western Reserve and fell for some senior classman there and swept her off her feet. And that swept her out of my area of influence. And I forewent my scholarship to this person. Not one of my finer decisions. It was my first stupid decision, actually, because I should have never decided not to go to medical school. You got 4 years or so before you're a doctor, so that could have been the trial period for this woman. And now I forwent the scholarship. It was just stupid all the way around. Just, what I say, pimply-faced boy with his brains between his legs. Anyway, so I didn't do the medical school thing. I would have been very good because I should have been okay because I was very academic. And I was really academic when it came to the sciences. I didn't score the best in my college because I had to take classes like intermediate German. Oh, the stupid head. Yeah. The German teacher looked at me. The German professor is a fine gentleman, from the Deutschland. And he looked at me and he says, it's really a shame. You just can't seem to get it. I said, I know, I just can't seem to get it. Yes, sir, I'm trying. He said, yes, you're very trying. Anyway, so you had the lab instructor. You ever heard of that? So you sit in a booth and you read passages and then you answer passages in German. I was taking German because some of the textbooks, if you're going to be a senior classman in chemistry, you have to know how to read the chemistry books in German because a lot of the finest chemistry books are written in German. Oh, geez. Well, I decided on the medical school thing. I don't need to. You got to take German. You got to take 2 years worth of German. I couldn't get past a C. I swear to God, my highest grade in that class was a C. I got this C, that C. Oh boy, it was torture. Anyway, so the fun part of the German story is, so you had this once a week. You had to go to the laboratory class. So you had 2 instructional classes and 1 laboratory class. I said, really? What do you do in a laboratory class when it's German? Do you speak this, with some German girl or something? So, you sit in a booth, you got a stupid microphone and headphones on, and you speak German into this microphone, and you read passages, let's say. It could be poetry, it could be, read a couple of pages in German into the microphone, and it goes on a tape, and then you take the tape out of the cassette thingy, you put your name on an envelope, and you slip it in like in a mail slot. And you put your name in the class, in the mail, and you got your tape in there, and then some guy, lab instructor person, remember I was a physical chemistry lab instructor, so this guy was assigned to me, the poor guy, and he would review all my tapes, over, a couple of year period. So I was at some kind of I was invited, they must have made a mistake, but I was invited to the president's house for a cocktail party, which of course was apple juice or something, and, faculty and certain students. Well, I had some pretty high grades in certain classes, so they invited me. I think it was a mistake anyway, but I went. So uh, I bumped into this guy. He said, "Oh, so you're Mr. Wilson?" I said, "Yeah." Everyone's got name tags. He said, "So you're James Wilson?" I said, I looked around. I said, "Yes, I am." Is there someone standing behind me? Nope, that's me. What's up? He said, "I have been grading your German tapes for 2 years." He said, "I thought you were Asian because you spoke German with like a Japanese accent." Really? He said, "I thought you were from Japan." I swear to God. Isn't that funny? That's the only fun time I had with my German thing. I met the guy, and he thought I was Chinese or Japanese. He said, "I thought you were from Asia." I said, "Well, I hope I didn't disappoint you." He said, "No, I'm totally surprised that you're actually, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, maybe." I said, "Yes, WASP. That's me." "Yes, sir." And Deutsch, not so good. Huh? He says, "No, you you tried your best, and you were very academic in the way in which you scientifically dissected the words in German. And it wasn't a very fluent language, but you tried to pronounce all the words properly, word by word." Not a fluent, it was word by word. Eins, zwei, drei, vier, fünf. Yep. Yes, sir. Okay. God, it's 11:40. Holy mackerel. It was 2 hours and 12 minutes and 2 hours and 13 minutes exactly. Jeez. What the heck is going on? El Paso, Texas, April 17th. Oh, I just saw snowstorms. I guess they got blizzard snowstorms. You got illegals crossing, hitting record highs. I'm just looking at the headline news flying over here on this device over here. Remember, this is a Simulcast. And guess what? Guess who bailed out about 20 minutes ago? Twitter. Come on, Elon. Get your stuff together. Don't you own that company? Facebook Live is still in there. YouTube Live is in there. Both. @ FAU for you. Twitter, I got this Jim W with 4-digit number. You can see it up in the very top there. It's a simulcast serving several social networks. I had 3 on there, but sometimes it's 2 because Twitter, seems to bail every once in a while. YouTube Live, Facebook Live, and Twitter Live. And we're in downtown Boca Raton in partly cloudy skies. Weather's supposed to be good all day today. Let's do my radar and see what the area has in store for us. We've got this triangular yellow thing, and we've got yellow. See these blue circles? That means power outage, according to the if you go somewhere. Yeah, you got these storm patterns. Yeah, see that blue circle right there? Now I'm zooming in. That is so. There's 2 different reported power outages. If I see power outage, there you go. Tracking number, whatever. Affected 1,678 customers. What about this one? Oh, a total of 1,678 people are without power. That's serious. And they get on that because you know what that means? 1,678 people are going to say, hey, I ain't paying for today. You guys didn't deliver power. Like it's their fault, right? And then this triangular or polygon thing, let's see if I touch the middle of that and see what that says. Maybe you have to, I don't know. It's the airport, something with the airport. Mikasuki. There you go. So we don't have, it's too soon to have bad weather. Usually later in the day. You got all these yellow spots. These are aviation layers. I should turn off those. Because we're not flying around. I'm not a pilot. I used to fly. There was a guy that was in my dormitory. Lived across the hall from me. I'm sorry, I forget his name. But he said, Jimmy, I got a deal for you. I said, really? What would that be? Ralph or Robert or something like that. He said, I have a plane, not twin engine. He said, I have a Cessna 170 or something like that. And he said, I've just got my instructor's license. I just got it today or yesterday or something. He said, I just got it in the mail. My pilot's instructor license. Really? So you instruct people on how to become a pilot? He said, yeah. He said, how would you like to be my first student? I said, I think I would like that. What's the deal? He said, you split the gas. The lessons are free. So I said, well, how much gas do you put in an airplane? I don't know anything about it. What do I know about a Cessna 170 and how many gallons it is? And, I had a car, I think. Yeah. Yeah, I had a car. Ooh, that's another story for another day. Anyway, he said it costs $12 to fill up the tank. He said, so you pay $6 and I pay $6. And I'll take you up. I'll teach you how to take off. I'll teach you how to land. I'll teach you how to do everything in between. And we'll do that, as often as it's convenient for both of us. And I said, all right, let's do it. When do you want to do it first? So we flew around and I took pictures like crazy out the windows. I said, how about turning the wing down a little bit over here on the right side of the plane? Let me take a couple of shots. He said, fasten your seatbelt. Well, of course, I already had my seatbelt on. Yep. So I learned how to be a co-pilot. And then I learned how to be a pilot. Got in the left seat. In an airplane, the pilot's on the left side. Just like in a car. In the United States. Pilot seat's on the left side. Co-pilot seat's on the right side. Yes, sir. So we flew this Cessna all over the place. And he taught me how to fly. Taught me about weather. Gave me some of his textbooks. Because he was, he was a pilot, I don't know what thing. Just a regular single engine pilot. And then he became an instructor. Got his instructor's license. I guess you can get an instructor license for a single engine aircraft. And you can go through some training and you take an instructor, I guess, flight test. And the FAA instructor makes sure you know enough so you can teach other people how to be a pilot. Weather is a big thing, obviously, if you're going to be flying airplanes, because you're in the clouds. So you have to know the clouds. You have to understand how they are built and how they work, and northeast, southwest, all those important things like which way is east? Well, where's the sun? In case you get disoriented and your compass is spinning and you don't know how to read a compass. The front of every cabin in a cockpit, there's a compass, right smack between the pilot and the co-pilot. There's a compass. A regular magnetic compass. Not to mention the digital compasses, assuming you're in the digital world. Anyway, so I learned how to fly an airplane. I learned how to land an airplane. I learned how to take air. And the biggest part, if you haven't done it for a while, or haven't done it, period, is you have to know how to use your radio. Because, when you get in your car, you just get in the car and start driving around. And you may not necessarily need maps and all this stuff, because you know where you're. Same thing, in a sense, with an airplane, except you don't have the freedom of driving. You have to get permission to take off. You have to file your flight plan with the tower, so they know where you're going and when you're expected to get wherever you're going. And they track your flight path. They may change your flight path, in the tower. So you file your flight plan. They review your flight plan right there in front of you. And you get the current weather. You can see that in the screens behind the girls up front. And then, when you get in your plane, you check in with the tower, the radio, on the radio. Hello, this is Jimmy. We're going to drive you crazy. Flying Miss Daisy. So, you're not allowed to crack jokes and be a wise guy on the radio. It's strictly business. Yes, sir. This is KOD 6614 checking in. We're flying to Greensboro, right outside of Raleigh. We're taking off from Charlotte. You are? Well, watch out for that big jet. Oops. Yeah, so they tell you when to go, they tell you when to stop, they tell you when to turn left, turn right. That's for just taxiing around the runways. Because you don't want to get run over by one of these suckers that are flying into you at 200 miles an hour. Yes, sir. So, I learned how to fly an airplane in college. I think it was sophomore, junior year. I got to know that fellow, and he got his pilot instructor license. I was a water safety instructor. I thought that was a big deal. I would teach lifeguards how to be lifeguards. That was a pain in the butt. But I learned how to do that. I got my water safety instructor license. You get a badge, a card, and you get patches you put on your bathing suits. Water safety instructor instead of lifeguard. Water safety instructor. That was a big deal. Got me an extra couple $100 when I was a lifeguard because I was a water safety instructor. I would teach lifeguards how to be lifeguards. It was, this guy he learned how to teach pilots how to be pilots. Oh, that was, wow. You got me one up there. I know what to do when we crash in water. Let's not. If we do crash, let's crash it from low altitude. Let's just lay that baby into the water, and I'll help you get out of the airplane and save your ass in the water. You can save my butt in the air. How about that? So I thought that was pretty impressive. Same age group as I was, I think. I didn't really get his age, but I looked about the same age. I looked like I was 12. He looked like he was 20, 18. I looked very young for my age. Yeah. Always looked young for my age. When I was 30, I looked 20. When I was 20, I looked 12. Marilyn's the same way. She's always looked young in her age. People couldn't get recently people couldn't get her age within 15 years. I actually had a guy guess my age. He said, well, you're still a young guy. I said, well, how young do you think I am? So he came out with a guess, and I said, all right, I'll take that. That's a good answer. He missed it by 15 years. I was 15 years older. So that was a compliment. I'd take that as a compliment. I just shut my mouth and said, all right, I'll take that. I'm crowding, some of these numbers that are getting way up there. Holy mackerel. Whew. Yes, sir. Well, I've gotten into this 2.5 hour business. 2 hours and 28 minutes. And YouTube Live and Facebook Live are still hanging in there with me. I told you, Twitter bombed out before I got to the 2 hour mark, I think. I think they took a hike. So I had a little piece of spaghetti this morning, early for breakfast at 8:30. I think I'll have some more spaghetti to finish off my lunch. And I'll watch the news coverage of. This is Wednesday, so they'll be arguing about all the what went on with the trial yesterday with Stormy Daniels and her useless testimony, which was totally useless. It's why they brought a stripper in. The question is whether they fraudulently classified the expenses improperly. And his attorney dealt with everything. It's a wealthy guy. He's worth $5 billion. Remember, $1 billion is 1,000 millions? Well, he was worth $5, $6 billion, $8 billion, $10 billion. So these wealthy people are targets for third parties to come after them and try to extort money out of them, And that's what Stormy Daniels does. Every time he runs for office, she shows up. Now whether bad guy Democrats are encouraging her to do that or paying her to do that, for that matter, she shows up. This whole thing happened 18 years ago. And all of a sudden, 5 months ago, she shows up again. As soon as he filed for president, she all of a sudden, she's showing up. She's on network TV. This and that. Everyone knows who Stormy Daniels is. She's the most popular. I was going to say bad words. I won't. She's a stripper. She does sexual things on TV. It's just unsavory things. And people that do unsavory things follow around wealthy people, try to get anything, kind of like you say anything to certain people. You don't know what profession they're in. So you keep your circle small and who you know when you're a wealthy person, or you're a political person, or a powerful person, or whatever, or just a wealthy person. You got to know who you're dealing with, because you just, unless it's hi, how are you? You don't want to say too much more because they could be out to trick you up, get in your wallet. You know, they're not necessarily trying to be your friend. They could be, bad people looking to extort money. It's all about money and politics. Well, when you're worth $5 billion and you've built some of the tallest buildings in Manhattan, and like a name on the building is Trump Tower, and your name is Mr. Trump, Donald J. Trump. Trump was a big name in the Manhattan area. I grew up in I grew up in, Jamaica, Queens, Brooklyn, Jamaica Estates. Jamaican me crazy. Sorry about that. And Trump's father was Trump, long time before Trump. Yeah. The first time I ever heard anything about Trump, Donald J. Trump, was, like 12. And, he goes, Trump was an apartment. Trump's father was an apartment, multi-family apartment developer. I mean, you know how many apartment buildings there are in the Jamaica, Queens, Brooklyn, Queens, Jamaica, North Shore, South Shore, East Shore, West Shore, all over the place. Well, Trump's father was an apartment developer long before Donald J. Trump. Donald J. Trump worked for Trump's father. He'd schlep around doing things that, kids did when their father was in the development business. And development business, and construction business, are oftentimes thought of as the same. They're not exactly the same, because the developer may never actually build the buildings. They hire contractors to do the building, so to speak. Or certain developers, they develop and build. And they might have licensed contractors work, on the staff. The development company that I was working with, the shopping center, we had an employee, Leonard Cementeris was his name, and he was a licensed contractor. He had a contractor license. And he was on our staff, and he, reviewed our plans, and, when we were developing the plans, drawing out the plans, and we brought him in later in the game, so to speak, when the plans are pretty much not 100% finalized, but we had them all laid out with the architect. We had Len take a final look at them before we signed off, pencils, they call it pencils down. No more changes, that's what that means. Pencils down. We signed off on the plans and handed them over to the architect. So he would finalize the drawings, put his seals on them, and we'd submit it into whatever municipality we were building the building in, the shopping center. In our case, we were doing shopping centers. Anyway, I don't think Donald Trump did shopping centers. He's a office building, high-rise tower kind of a thing. And then of course he's golf course. Started buying golf courses and golf course community, stuff. So that wouldn't be high-rise residential. That'd be low-rise. All right. It's 12:01. It's time for you to have lunch. It's time for me to go get the balance of my little spaghetti breakfast, which I didn't finish because I was trying to get on the air by 9, which I missed that by 20 minutes or so because things didn't come together here. I couldn't get my screen here working, at the same time the camera would work. And then when that didn't happen, I didn't have the audio, my background music going, and everything just it was a rat race trying to get going. I figured, okay, I gotta get on here, because I promised you I'd be on at 9 and I didn't make it. So what are you gonna do? I try. Tomorrow is Thursday. I'll try harder to get on at 9. And I hope you have a great lunch. 2 hours, 36 minutes, and 44 seconds later, I'm going to turn up the Epidemic Sound Instrumental, which is our royalty-free background music by Academic Sound Instrumental people. Royalty-free sound. It's a 3-hour and 1 minute segment of music, which, is, I'm sure you recognize it by now, as it's on every day that I'm on. I like it. Plus, it's royalty-free. I don't have to worry about copyright infringement and stuff. That's an important thing. So, I'm going to say goodbye. See you tomorrow morning. Be safe.